Jacksonville Jaguars are a complete and total mess. I don't know what the hell that was in Buffalo. Look, they were an underdog going into the game. Like, not surprising they would have lost the game. But, like, these losses look worse and worse and worse. I mean, Damar Hamlin gets his first career interception. They're celebrating that. Doug Pederson's got no answers. He was asked afterwards about, what needs to be done. How can he fix things? They're not a very good football team. Here was his answer.
I don't lose confidence in myself. One of the things I have to do is evaluate our process. What are we doing? And is it beneficial for the team, right? Is it helping us win? And obviously it's not right now. So those are all things that I have to look at moving forward.
What's wrong with you? Come on, the guy's going through a lot.
I'm trying.
Have a heart.
Just try to evaluate the process, make sure we're good, so that we can win. But obviously, it's not a good process.
Well done, by the way.
Not a good process.
That was great. Yeah. There's not much of a heartbeat. Is that what you're saying?
I asked Pete this last week, Pete Prisco, and I do wonder if the sentiment on the Jaguars and the confidence on the Jaguars the past couple of years has been because of that one playoff game against the Chargers.
About that, man.
Because it holds true when you consider
it doesn't. The only thing that holds true is Trevor Lawrence was drafted number 1 overall.
Okay,
and he had a career in college that led you to. I've said it before. I watched the kid in high school. I watched him throw a football. I was like, damn! Like, I had not seen a kid at that age sling the football around the way he did. And you can understand then the hype that was around it, the hype that he got to Clemson. They went on national championship his freshman year. So that was where this all comes from. This isn't that one playoff game.
Well, this
comes from the fact that we looked at him as a generational talent. That's how we viewed Trevor
Lawrence. That's what it was.
Okay.
That's what it is. It's not a playoff game. So just save it.
No.
It was.
They doubled down on that and gave him the contract. What led you to believe, after everything you've seen early on in his career, that he was deserving of that contract? They doubled down on it. And since then, the numbers have played out exactly like they have majority of his career. Exactly.
And the problem is this was their predicament. They had to commit to one of the two. It was either going to be Trevor Lawrence or Doug Pederson. And here's the reality of it. Committing to Trevor Lawrence the way they did that early in his rookie deal is actually the best decision they could have made. Because if they need to get from out underneath it here in a year or two, they can. And it's much more reasonable than waiting until he pushed closer and closer to free agency where that number goes up. So that's the difference, is they actually made a wise decision in that regard, and there might be a suitor for him somewhere out there as we look across the league and see poor quarterback play. I mean, you could go through a number of teams right now that may say, hey, we're interested in him. I mean, I don't know. I mean, obviously, Caleb Williams drafted number 1 overall. We'll see how this thing goes, but we can have a conversation at some point today's show about whether or not they're having some buyer's remorse. Maybe they would have rather had Justin Fields. We'll see where things go, down the line with Will Levis. The Titans are 0-3. They're talking about a potential quarterback change, or at least that's already coming up. So that's something to discuss at some point. I mean, you go through the Giants, they're probably going to be looking for a new quarterback at some point, even though Danny Dimes was balling out this past week.
Dang.
The Panthers are rolling with Andy Dalton.
Oh, yeah.
So that's another team that I think, he's not getting any younger. They'll eventually be looking for someone as well. We don't even know Tua's health or situation.
Yeah.
If he comes back, when he comes back. Like, I can keep going if you want. There's going to be spots and opportunities for a guy like Trevor Lawrence to get picked up by another team. I mean, the Detroit Lions. Yes, they've got Jared Goff, and he's playing some really good football right now. At some point, they'll have to start thinking about life after Jared Goff. There's all these places and teams. New York Jets, life after Aaron Rodgers. They're going to have to find out at some point, like, who's that next guy coming in. There's plenty of teams that would love to work with Trevor Lawrence's skill set and say, we don't feel like he was being developed. We don't feel like he was in a great situation there.
Why isn't it working? Like, because they've got a ton of talent.
Well, Doug Pederson's not calling the plays, and that's the biggest issue. He needs to get back over calling the plays. It was an issue last year. Press Taylor, and the system that they're running, in my opinion. I still don't think some of these teams are built the proper way, where they built. It's one of the reasons why, if you look at Joe Alton, granted, probably a bad time to say it because Justin Herbert got banged up this past week, but you build through the offensive line in the trenches, and then you worry about the other pieces, because it's hard trying to throw the football off your back. I feel like at times there's too much pressure. At times, they're everything, and I've talked about this with Pete forever. If you go out and look at their pass charts, you'll see half the time everything's spread horizontally. It's like nothing over the middle. They never have a consistent run game. Their defense is spotty at best. It's a team that's trying to be held up by a first overall pick at quarterback that's now in a second contract, and they don't have the pieces around the quarterback position. I would go as far as saying this. If you look at some of the teams right now that are 3-0, probably with the exception of the Kansas City Chiefs, even though, I think even Patrick Mahomes would say he's not getting into a rhythm early in games. Look at the Steelers. What's their identity? Defense. They've been running the football. Fields has played well in some spots, but I mean, the Vikings are probably the only team that might say, well, Darnold's balled out so far, but it's the entirety of their team. I think as we look at the NFL, how they're paying quarterbacks $60 million now with Dak's deal, it'll probably be more than that for some others who re-up. I think it's trending backwards to, but if we want to pay a quarterback that much, great, but they might be 0-3 out the gate then, because we don't have any money to pay anyone else, and the team stinks around them, and the quarterback can only do so much if he's getting pressure, throwing off his back, has no one that can separate, has no running game. So if the quarterback wants that, that's fine, but you might be off to an 0-3 start.
I wonder if they would make an in-season change. I know they did with Urban Meyer, and look, there was a lot more to that than just the on-field
I saw
play.
a tweet, by the way, that asked the question, did Trevor Lawrence ruin Urban Meyer's NFL career?
Dang.
I mean,
Jonas?
Look.
Dang.
I don't even know how far I can take this. Listen, there's a lot there. All right,
Jonas?
but I just,
It certainly wasn't him sitting in a restaurant conversing
Hey, look,
with the friendly.
the guy was minding his own business.
It was minding his business, man. I mean, you can't help it if the DJ plays Freak a Leak and somebody loses their mind and starts dropping it like it's hot.
I
know what I mean?
Yeah. What do you want him to do?
That's all I'm
right.
saying. I mean, they're gonna judge that man like that, and how you looking at it, and you saying, did we get rid of the wrong person?
Guy's the star of Big Noon Kickoff. What do you want?
Jonas?
I just listen. I wonder. Would they make an in-season change?
Jesus,
Would they?
Is that you?
And I also thought this: if you were,
Jonas. Answer the question, Jonas.
I'm non-committal on the topic.
I've heard that voice before, man. I think I heard it yesterday.
Oh man,
Jonas, talk about the playoff game, Jonas.
That was a great cue up. It was a great cue up, Jonas.
one half of football in a playoff game, in which was more of a collapse by the Chargers than it was.
Like, I've got vinyls, and I've got some where and I know. It skips and keeps going back to I know. Like, Jonas will always go back to certain things.
Dang.
It's
Am
the
I
Rex
wrong?
Grossman, Kyle Orton coin flip before.
Oh, did I tell you that story, by the way? Yeah, like,
About how Lovie Smith?
Yeah, in training camp.
You
he
was
flipped a
talking
coin.
about
You didn't
that.
know
What happened?
All right, so check this out, and I'm glad you brought it up. So apparently in training camp, they were trying to decide who was going to start, one of the preseason games, and so Lovie Smith said that he flipped a coin between Kyle Orton and Rex Grossman. You guys didn't know that? Yeah, true story. Right there.
That's one of them.
That's
this
the actual
playoff
coin.
game, though. You're like Pete. You have a lot in common with Pete Prisco. This playoff game will be the other one that he's going to go back to forever with Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence could be on another team, and Jonas will still go back to this.
Yes. Yeah, it's called Remembering Where You Came From. And he came from a playoff game in which he played one half of good football. He was awful in the first half. And because of that, I think, myself included, overrated that team going into last year and overrated them going into this year.
I think
And
you
that's
need to
a
watch
fact.
some Jaguars football a little bit more to get a little wider.
What are you talking about?
base of-
I've watched Jacksonville Jaguars football. I know what happened
All right,
in
then
the
you'd realize they have a lot more issues than just going back to one half of football in a playoff game where you feel like everyone was sold.
There's a
I'm not sure
lot-
that was exactly what happened there.
There's a lot of talent there, and you're telling me it's just because Doug Pederson doesn't want to call plays? Why doesn't he want to call plays? Like, if his
I'm not
job's
saying
on
it's
the
because he
line,
doesn't want to call plays. I think at some point he will take over play calling.
Because when the owner comes out and says, and basically puts everybody on blast this offseason like Shad Khan did, my expectation was, well, Doug, why take any chances? Doug Pederson's going to call plays. Like, if his job's on the line and the owner already came out and said that, why are we messing around? And now
because
they're 0-3.
You can always move on from a coordinator earlier in the season and then keep your job for the rest of the season if you're not the one calling plays. If you're the one calling plays, you get clipped.
If this is going the way it's going the rest of the year, Doug Pederson's gone. So why are we messing around?
As 0-3? Yeah, I'd say that's a pretty fair assessment.